This expression, Satin Chakwaham Bhikkhave, Savadikam Vadami, meaning bhikkhus, monks, I say, mindfulness is required everywhere. That is the meaning. Yes, it is correct. Mindfulness is required everywhere, except the time when you are fast asleep. In all the 4 postures, even in tiny little movements or change of postures, and the sense impressions such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching and so on, even to the extent of closing and opening your eyes, not to leave any gap, not to miss anything. Like you said, guard your mind with diligence by noting everything. Hence the Buddha says that sati is required everywhere. Sati, it is said, is never in excess. Although other mental states may be in excess or in deficiency, maybe weak or too strong or too weak. For instance, there are times when saddha, faith and confidence, is in excess. There is excessive faith with less panya or wisdom or power of reasoning. At other times, the other way around. Too much reasoning, too much rationalization, too much panya with weak or less saddha, faith and confidence. And again, there are times when vriya, energy, is in excess, too much energy, excessive energy with less of concentration, samadhi. And at other times, the other way around, samadhi is in excess and vriya is less or weak. So that these 2 pairs of mental states are not balanced. With the result that one cannot progress in the practice. As for sati, mindfulness, it is never in excess. It is always in deficiency. You need sati all the time. That's why it is said that sati is required everywhere. In the worldly affairs also, you need to be mindful. That's why you always say this modern salutation. When you 2 people leave, take care. This is, you need this sati, mindfulness, even when you are relieving yourself. So, this is how the Buddha has given this direct guidance to be mindful all the time. Now the question is, what will happen if you are not mindful? We need to answer this question. If one is not mindful, or even if one is mindful, one has not enough mindfulness, especially when the mindfulness does not arise together associated with knowledge, then one is bound to commit a wrongdoing, especially for those, as I said, the putujanas, ordinary beings, are thick with kilesas. Leaving the mind uncontrolled, let the mind happen, let it happen anything, that sort of thing. That is very frightful. Allowing your emotions to run yourself. As we have discussed in the subject regarding the pamada and apamada, if one is indulging in ducharitas, immoral deeds, without any control, without any mindfulness, then one is bound to become violent in one's own action, at the same time harming others. Also, if one is indulging in the sensual pleasures, not seeing the flaws of these sensual pleasures, thinking that they are the real ones that we should enjoy in life, and life is sensual pleasures, sensual pleasures is life. If that is the way one sees life, then not knowing the disadvantages of the consequences of the sensual pleasures, indulging in sensual pleasures, especially in this practice, not being able to practice in accordance with the instructions. When one is taught to intensive practice, one will not gain insight and reach one's goal, realize one's goal. So one needs the sati, mindfulness, so as not to commit transgressive actions, gross debauchery does. That is very important. That's primary. That is of prime importance. Although we are not as sentient beings, we are not free from sensual pleasures totally. One should control oneself not to indulge in excessive pleasures which are out of bound, out of one's own legal bounds. Then there will be a lot of mistakes, wrongdoing, and especially in this practice of guarding with diligence of every arising of object, one needs to be mindful of, with respectfully and carefully sustain one's mindfulness. And instead of doing that, if it's just practicing casually, not being dedicated, instead one is marginal in the practice, stop and go method, sometimes noting, sometimes not noting, sometimes resting, sometimes just wandering, thinking and all that, not being firmly established in the practice. So then one will not be worth practicing this mindfulness. It will be just a waste of time. Hence, sati is always necessary. So if we are not mindful, what will happen? No, there's no need to answer this question. Actually, you can answer this question yourself. You know the answer. Then you will be indulging in kilesas and stages, not being free from kilesas. Indulging in sensual pleasures, self-indulgence, and at times with craving for desirable objects, from small craving to a certain higher degree of craving, and there's an extreme case of greed. At other times with some objects which causes dissatisfaction, hate-inducing objects. Regarding that, you are dissatisfied. Then dissatisfied from a very small degree, very low degree, to a high degree, so that you cannot. This anger gets out of control. And same thing goes with the views. You're holding different kinds of views, especially perverted views, leading to wrongdoing. And the extreme cases, you become mad. Madness will arise. Look at this sense of pleasures. If you allow your emotion to run you, and leaving the mind uncontrolled, and not being careful, seeing that they are only the real good ones, then you will be doing things for self-interest, keeping in mind for your own interest without regard to the interest of others or for the society, not taking care of the society, only taking care of yourself and your own community, or own relatives or friends or community. So if you are doing that, then you get from indulgence you get intoxicated, like taking intoxicants. You don't become normal, uninhibited, become abnormal, and there's a change, transformation, not for the good but for the bad transformation, bad change. And if you don't correct this in time, then from being intoxicated, you become more giddy. That is, intense intoxication. And then there will be more and more change change for the, not for the better, for the worse. So not knowing how to control oneself, there will be a lot of indulgence, especially indulgence in kilesas and defilements, not being able to control yourself, you become mad. From madness you are led to violent actions. So by this you will be spoiling your own life. Your life will be in jeopardy as much as causing jeopardy in others, so that there will be a lot of social problems. In this way, these social problems arise in the world, and there's no solution to it, without any solution to it, such as stress, pressure, depression, mental depression, and all these things. Without peace, such is madness. If one commits wrongdoing, not being able to be mindful, especially as we've discussed in the case of pamada and apamada, failing to observe what should be observed, and failing to abstain what should be abstained, then if you are failing to abstain what should be abstained, then you are bound to become mad, violent. And then if you fail to observe what should be observed, then it will not be to your benefit, to your advantage. You will be this will be at your loss. Such things, such wrongdoings, result from excessive greed and hatred. In the world, there are mad people. In the text are given these 8 kinds of madness, as given in the text. Namely, Kamomaraka was the first one, madness with sensual pleasures, and Kautumaraka, madness with anger or ill will or fury. Detomaraka, madness with wrong views. Mohomaraka, madness with folly or stupidity. We have Yakomaraka, madness with devils or unseen beings. Paitomaraka, madness with bile or any organic disease. And this madness due to intoxicants, Surumaraka. If you take intoxicants, you become mad. And also there's a kind of madness as a result of the loss of family members, loss of your wealth, or due to diseases such as these terminal diseases, and a lot of this sorrow, that is Vyasamarka, that is madness with sorrow. So these will be discussed one by one. Not being mindful and leaving the mind uncontrolled, freewheeling, let anything happen so long as I live, that sort of thing. Then if one acts like this, there are 2 ways. One is when one may become good or bad, but mostly one will become bad. Instead of controlling, like in the case of controlling the children, instead of controlling one's own children so as to tame them, to educate them, and to become good children, good citizens, if you leave the children without any control, without any teaching, then in most cases they will copy bad examples, imitate bad children, and it is most likely they will become bad themselves, and their life will be spoiled. So that one will not be able to man one's ways throughout one's life. This we know that's happening all over the world. For instance, there are cases of school children taking up arms against one another, even killing even one's parents and teachers. All these are due to self-indulgence, leaving the mind uncontrolled, letting one's emotions run oneself. Thinking that these things, what they do is good. Of course, if they think that it's not good, they won't do it. So they think it is good, they cling to it, they become attached to it, at least for that moment. Maybe later on, they realize, they feel remorse, and they realize that this is bad. It's very frightful. Such as kama marga, which is based on greed, lobha, indulging in lobha, indulging in greed, looking at only one's own interest without regard to the welfare and interest of others. So that even there are cases of this misconduct, especially this sexual misconduct with underage children, incest practices with own daughters or things like that, and then homosexual activities, and having illegal relationship with other spouses. Such are the result of self-indulgence. Thinking that they are good is a kind of gratification. This is madness of karma, madness of sensual pleasures. Such things come out very often in the news media, and there are many things which don't come out in the news media that we don't know. So such is madness with sense of pleasures, and looking at only one's own interest, even to the extent of committing murders, and such are the wrongdoings. That is because one lacks control of one's mind with mindfulness, giving in or indulging in lobha, and thinking that they are good things, enjoying doing it, committing such things, taking pleasure in it without regard to others. That's why this selfishness is the result, is the cause of this madness with karma, senses to pleasures. For those who are selfish, looking at only one's own interest, not thinking about others, without regard for others' interests or others' welfare, looking only for oneself. Looking for oneself and one's own community or one's own group, not without any regard for other groups or other communities, and not wishing for the welfare of others, other communities, not wanting them to be happy or peaceful. That is lack of metta, loving kindness, not seeing the affable good aspect of others, only seeing the bad dosa aspect of hatred, looking only hatred, how to hate him, how to dislike him, not looking at the likable aspect of other people. Then what will happen? Then if you are affected, if something happens to you, then there will be very fast reaction, quick dissatisfaction, disappointment, anger, ill will, because you are selfish. You look at your own interest without being able to forgive and forget, without patience, without sympathetic feeling, compassionate feeling. At once you blow up, sort of thing. And then that is cruelty, leading to cruelty and killing, things like that. And like this viper, a snake called viper, a poisonous snake. As soon as it comes into contact with something dangerous, it would raise its head at once with a noise, hissing noise, because it is furious, overwhelmed with dosa, ill will, only wishing for one's own interest, leading to transgressive actions by body and speech, either one or the other, such as kodo madaka, madness with fury, and since this is a result of dosa, anger, ill will, dissatisfaction, disappointment, not being able to control oneself, then one commits wrongdoing, such as kodomadaka, or you may say dosamadaka. It's very important as fellow human beings to look at the lovable aspect and avoid this bad aspect, not to look at the unwholesome aspect, only to cultivate metta and wishing for the welfare of others. One should awaken one's own metta, looking at the lovable, satisfactory aspects, such as such person is generous with respect to wealth, generous giving, and also in giving and voluntary service, something like that. And look at one's good conduct or good mentality, good character. Such are the good aspects that one should look at in order to cultivate loving kindness. For those who are selfish, will not be able to look at such level aspect of others. Only wishing for others' suffering, wishing for others' misfortune, not seeing that others are suffering, and without any sympathetic feeling, without any compassionate feeling. If there's no metta, there will be no karuna, no compassion. So if a human being doesn't possess any metta karuna, then he or she will be like an animal. His or her mentality will be animal mentality, thinking that it is good to do anything, indulging in anger or ill will, harming others, and such is known as krodha, fury, anger, kind of madness, not being able to control oneself in time, and so that one also harms others. Not being able to see the lovable or bright or good aspect of others. One's mind is said to become perverted, and not being able to look at the not being able to have sympathy towards others, also one's mind becomes perverted. If one's mind becomes perverted, then one will lead to cruelty, anger, dosa, and cruelty. They are very frightful. At times, as excuse me, metta, it's very much like metta. It seems as though there is metta, loving kindness. However, it is mixed with raga, craving or lust or attachment. That means then one's metta will not be a genuine one. One is sort of deceived, so to speak, by raga. And raga arises in the guise of metta. Although actually it is raga, lust or craving, but you are just deceived into thinking that this is loving kindness, metta. It comes in the guise of metta. So this metta coming in, raga rising in the guise of metta is also one kind of perversion. Again with the karuna, compassionate feeling. Sometimes you have pet animals in your house, domestic animals, they are for some reason dying, you see them dying, and then you have compassionate feeling. You feel compassionate towards these animals. You don't want to look at it for a long time because they're dying, and you grieve because you are seeing it, you're looking at it. So, being overcome by grief, you commit this mercy killing, kill it at once by, for instance, like kitten, and you dip it in water, drown it, sort of thing, or poison it, something like that. kind of mercy killing. That is, you are deceived by soka, grief. Actually, you think it is compassion, a compassionate feeling, but you are deceived, cheated. This soka coming in the guise of compassion. You think that it is good, but actually it is perversion. Thinking that it is good to mercy kill. So instead of knowing the real cause of metta and karuna, one's mind becomes perverted, gone on a wrong way, thinking what is wrong as right and what is right as wrong. And such is the subtle form of deity views, wrong madness with views, detu madaka. And this perversion leads to madness with views. So instead of noting, to know the nature of mind, body as it exists, with the method of the practice of satipatthana, precisely and energetically, sustaining mindfulness and deepening concentration, one is just thinking, imagining or fantasizing. Some don't even think, they just stay like this. And if one is not aware of the nature of the mind and body, then one will not be aware of the truth, and such as the truth of mind, body, the truth of the conditionality. If one is not aware, then one will, one's mind will be directed to one, and there will be one will be giving attention to something. That is perversion of the mind. Let us say, in this practice, as you are going to sit from standing position, there is this intention to sit, followed by or accompanied by the actual sitting process. Intention is the mentality and the sitting process is the materiality. So they go in pairs. Intention to sit, sitting, intention to sit, sitting, like that. And if you are not being mindful at that very moment with the practice of satipatthana, then you will think that your form of a body is sitting, or you are sitting, not knowing the true nature of these things, not knowing the realities. And at the moment of arising, then it is I who is sitting, it is the form of the body who is sitting. Such is vipallasa, perversion, not being able to be aware of the realities of mind and body, and holding the view of self or soul, I, and holding to the view of I being, man, woman, I, you, person, being, individual, and holding the view of self, atta, and that is madness with deity views, wrong views. And when you are changing postures and other matters, other situations, like standing from sitting position, or bending, even bending, stretching your arms or limbs, if you are not very mindful at the moment of its arising, of its happening, then you will not be aware of the realities, such as also vipallasa, perversion. Then you will hold on to some kind of view, or hold on to one view or another. That's holding on to the view of this your whole body or parts of the body, which is doing it, which is bending, stretching, sitting, standing, and so on. So holding the view of atta, self or soul, this is a perverted view, leading to a kind of madness. When you are sitting from standing position, there is first the intention to sit, which is the cause, and the actual sitting process, the body slowly sinking down, stage by stage, that is the effect as a result of this intention. Because you intend, you sit, otherwise you don't sit. So there's a linkage between cause and effect. And if you're not being mindful at the moment of its arising, it's happening while you're sitting, then you will not be aware, you will not know the cause nor the effect. And you think that, oh, you just sit, you'll be just knowing that you are only sitting without knowing the cause and effect. Or you may think that some supreme being, you are sitting at the command of some supreme being or some omnipotent being, and you're doing it and according to the wishes of this omnipotent being. Either you don't know the cause and effect, or even if you think there's a cause, you will hold the cause, fictitious cause view, that these are caused by this omnipotent being. When there be doubt about view of causelessness, there is no cause. There is no such cause for anything. Anything happens by chance. Sitting is by chance, or standing is by chance. There is no cause. In this way, there is a view of causelessness. If you are not being mindful of this process of conditionality at the moment of its happening, neither would you know the cause nor the effect. You become perverted, and not being able to follow this cause and effect. Such is the knowledge of knowing the realities, Yata Buddha Nupassana Jnana. If you are not able to develop that knowledge, insight, then you will not be aware of the cause. You will hold the view of causelessness. Or even if you think there is a cause, if you think that there is a certain cause, you will hold the fictitious cause view, that irrelevant cause, giving rise to irrelevant effect. Holding on to the irrelevancy of cause and effect. Such is sammoha binivesa. This is confusion, intense delusion, doubts coming in that somebody is doing it. Somebody is causing you to sit or stand, and this has been ingrained in you throughout your lifetimes. That's because you are not mindful of the cause and effect at the moment of its arising. That's why you are perverted, holding perverted views. Good. Because you are not mindful at the moment of rising, whatever happens in your body, not being aware of the cause and effect, you become perverted, you become doubtful. Doubt because you are believing in a wrong way. That is, believing in the wrong way, believing wrongly. Not knowing the truth, you are not knowing, you have wrong knowledge, ignorance, which is dangerous. And if such things arise, there will be this, one will lead to this wrong or perverted perception, sanya, from perverted views or perverted consciousness to perverted perception. So that whenever we are confronted with some natural calamities like floods or cyclones or rain, heavy rain or floods or things like that, or storms, some may think that it is due to some body, some being or gods who are causing all these things. And so that in those days they even offer sacrificial rites to such gods or unseen beings. Such is another kind of Desumarga, which has its root cause, Desumarga, madness with views, which has its cause in Vaibalasa, perversion. And if we have to discuss this subject, it's going to be very elaborate. Indulging in lobha, one is led to become madness with sensuous pleasures, kama, madness, and indulging in dosa, giving way to dosa, one becomes koda, madness with fury or anger. It is not knowing the truth, one becomes perverted. Root cause lies in not knowing the truth. then one will see, one will know wrongly. If one does not know the truth, then one will know wrongly. Then one is led to become deluded, folly, stupidity. One is said to be hindered by ignorance. And the Buddha has given that the world is shrouded in darkness. Because they don't know the truth, they know wrongly. Especially in this practice of insight, in order to discern mind and body, cultivate knowledge, insight knowledge, beginning with the mind, body and conditionality, universal characteristics. Those people who are able to gain insight are very few. Just like the story of the bird hunter, who at one time tried to catch the birds, a group of birds, with a net. He threw the net over them and he caught most of them. Only a few could escape this net. So most of them were caught. So also most people are caught in this madness. So this not knowing the method to struggle to become liberated from suffering, not knowing the method, even one knows that one is not following that method, one becomes deluded, and such is Mahamarga, madness with delusion, which has a root cause in Ajnana, unknowing or ignorance. Being deluded and confused and caught up with one's life, caught up with one's occupation, caught up with one's social matters and things like that. Such is Mahamarga, madness with moha, delusion. Now we have this indulging in lobha, indulging in dosa, giving in to deity, moha. Then one is led to become madness, respectfully, madness with lobha, madness with dosa, madness with deity, madness with moha, and so on. And not being able to cultivate mindfulness, one is not applying this sati, so that the dhamma, the practice, the dhamma will not sustain or bear or help the dhamma practitioner, dhamma non-practitioner. Because one is not practicing, dhamma will not help such a person. So one is out of control. Then, if one is out of control, one is bound to be bullied by the enemies, such as the storm will bully the trees, felling down the trees in the storm. So too with the enemies. There are unseen enemies, unseen beings in some cases, of course, such as Yakhu Madaga, madness with these unseen beings, being possessed by unseen beings. There are some people who tread this fire from one end of the fire to another end, being possessed by these unseen beings, or they pierce the tongue with some needles and poke them, pierce them. You must have seen them, and all these things, and then dancing all around, like an intoxicated person being possessed by these unseen beings, unseen spirits, losing one's normal senses, consciousness. It is becoming abnormal, and sometimes with sacrificial rites. Such are the cases of this possession with unseen beings. At that moment, not being able to be mindful of one's own mind, body, and giving in to lobha, dosa, moha, the mind becomes impure, leading to impurity of the materiality. Because of the impurity of mentality, this gives rise to impurity in materiality, so that your metabolism is affected, your heart is affected, blood circulation is affected, and your bile and things like that they are also affected. And such kind of madness is known as pedomataka, madness with bile. When you say bile, it also means other things inside one's body, the whole metabolism, or the whole internal organs. Then comes this drinks, intoxicants. First you take a little bit of drink, giving excuse that it is a social drink. Then later, first you drink alcohol, let us say. Then alcohol will drink you, because you don't know. That's what we say. Alcohol is drinking you. But you go on drinking, without knowing how to stop. Not losing your normal senses, doing all sorts of unwholesome things, madness. Such is known as pseudo-madaka, madness with intoxicants. Look at those people who take drugs or inject drugs. They had feeling high on top of the world at the moment of taking drugs, at the moment of injection or transfusion. When they don't get it, they feel jittery, body shaking, they become very mad. They resort to all sorts of unwholesome things like stealing, robbing, and so on, which is very frightful and dangerous. And that when one comes to this stage, because one lacks this basic moral contact, or one is not able to develop one's mind and insight with the practice of Satipatthana, the mind has not become developed, nor has become nor matured as a result of this insight, then whenever one faces these worldly conditions, ups and downs of vicissitudes, one can easily become elated about desirable, good things, agreeable things, or one becomes reactive, dejected, over-dejected about undesirable, bad things, or misfortune. So that also sometimes because of a loss of one's own near dear ones, loss of relatives, or loss of wealth or property. For instance, at times of stock market crash some time ago, and also loss of one's occupation and a job, or due to loss of one's health, where one's becoming sick, especially with terminal diseases, one is overcome by sorrow and one might even cry. So because initially one lacks protection with the practice of Satipatthana, and one suffers loss, one is affected by this loss, jasana. And because one cannot withstand such worldly conditions, and one is said to be, one can be said to be sinking in the rolling waves, or one is rolling in the waves of loka dhamma, worldly conditions, because one has not developed one's mind nor has matured. So that one becomes mad, and one sometimes die of it, and becomes incurable. There are cases of this madness with loss of wealth. All of a sudden, because of a stock market crash, or loss of one's very close, near dear ones, and such losses leads to madness, a kind of madness. Though people pay attention to prevention, protection, treatment, eradication of physical diseases, bodily diseases, we are very slow in trying to do the same thing with these mental diseases, madness, the world over, so that these 8 kinds of madness prevail in the world at some time or another. So, as much as there are causes for these kinds of madness, there are also remedies to overcome such madness, which we'll discuss tomorrow.